Luigi's Mansion for the Nintendo GameCube was a game that came out way back in 2001 when I was just 2 years old, so I didn't get to play through it all until just a couple days ago, and I gotta tell you, I wish I had picked it up earlier. I don't know how people felt about the game at the time since, I was barely around, but I'm glad to see my boy Luigi get some love in an actually good game. Luigi's Mansion has a pretty simple story. Luigi wins a free mansion, and then when he goes inside, he finds it infected with ghosts and finds out Mario has been kidnapped by the ghosts. Professor Egad saves Luigi and gives Luigi a Poltergust 3000, which is a modified vacuum cleaner used to suck up the ghosts, and sends him on his mission to defeat all the ghosts and rescue Mario. The entire vibe of the game is so unique and dark, in a child-friendly way of course. The atmosphere is completely dark, ghosts can pop out of literally anything, there's constant lightning striking in the game, and the creepy music plays everywhere. But just because the music is creepy doesn't mean there isn't some absolute bangers. And Luigi himself is reacting in a very scared way to everything around him. I don't know of too many first-party Nintendo games that would take this somewhat darker and scarier approach, and after the years of playing upbeat Mario games, it was fun to play as Luigi as he walks around the mansion scared out of his mind. The basic mechanics of the game are using a flashlight and Poltergust 3000 in order to catch ghosts. Different ghosts have completely different ways of defending themselves, and so you need to approach each ghost differently in order to try to catch them off guard with the flashlight and suck them up with the Poltergust. I loved how many different ghosts there were in this game. Some of the basic ghosts include the Hugging Ghost, Mr. Bones, Elemental Ghost, Earthquake Ghost, Banana Ghost, and so much more. There's just enough for there to be a variety, making sure we don't get bored with them, and yet at the same time, there's just enough to make sure that by the end parts of the game, we're familiar enough with them and able to put our skills to the test. And speaking of the variety, the portrait ghosts are all unique, with each and every one of them having a completely different personality and way to defeat them. You can run into so many different portrait ghosts, from a literal infant to a bodybuilder. With some of them, you just have to wait for the right moment until they're vulnerable to flash your light at them and suck them up. And with others, you may need to wait in order to complete a puzzle minigame or just figure out how to get to them and put them in a vulnerable position before sucking them up. And of course, there are some full-fledged boss fights that require you to take the portrait ghosts out in an epic battle. Each and every portrait ghost is much harder to catch than regular ghosts, and they all have their own room in the mansion that makes sense for them to be in. Since we're discussing the mansion, it's way bigger than it seems at first glance, and each room makes sense to have in a mansion. There's no useless empty rooms, and each room serves a purpose, and it doesn't seem out of place in a big mansion like this. I really enjoyed how expansive the entire mansion was, but that comes with a really big drawback. A lot of times, mostly in the later stages of the game, when you defeat a portrait ghost and get a key for a new room, it's a room on the other side of the house. There's no shortcuts or a way to get to another room quickly. Well, I guess if you aim your Game Boo at a mirror, and then it will instantly teleport you to the front part of the house again. But still, that's not a good enough shortcut. There's no shortcuts, no way to get over there really quickly, and it can get a bit annoying. None of the rooms are really labeled on the map either. If you needed to get to a certain one, sometimes you'd be forced to try a couple different rooms just to get to the one you want, because I promise you, throughout the game, you're going to forget a thing or two. One cool thing about the rooms was how the entire room would light up after you cleared it, and how if you cleared all the rooms on a floor, the entire floor would be lit up, and the ghosts in the hallways would be completely gone. Another interesting layer to the collecting would show itself once you've cleared a room of ghosts and portrait ghosts. Once the room lights up and you've gotten past a certain point in the game, you can always search the room for a boo. Each cleared room has a hidden boo ghost that you can catch. In my opinion, this does a pretty good job at giving the player another reason for going into certain already cleared rooms in order to explore/re-explore in order to get your hands on the boos. This, however, does come with a really big annoyance. When the boos have 100 health, it's not too hard to capture them, but oh my god, when they get to 300 health in the later stages of the game, it's the most annoying thing ever. They can move through walls, and they will move into rooms you don't have access to, or they'll move into rooms that you need to go all the way around just to be able to get into that room, and that is very, very annoying. Multiple times, I had a boo that moved into the hallway before I can even take away 10 health, and then when I went into the hallway to go grab it, it moved right back into that same room before I could even touch it. And this was just like a never-ending loop, and I just quit the boo hunting, and I was like, screw that, it is not mandatory to beat the game. I got like 40-something of them out of 50, so I was pretty good, but eventually I just gave up on them. But Of course, aside from the Bugos, another way to pass the time and scratch your collecting itch is collecting money. Every room in the mansion is stuffed with cash, gold, diamonds, more and more and more, etc., etc. It is so satisfying getting your hands on as much money as possible, and depending on how much money you collect, the size of your mansion at the end of the game will be impacted. The more money you get, the bigger your mansion at the end will be, and the higher your rank will be, so you bet you want to get as much of it as possible. That means you cover every inch of every single room looking for the hidden money. You look for, there's certain hidden rooms and whatnot that you can find. Those are always really fun to come across as well. But overall, this game is super replayable. With the short length, the want to go back and get the coveted A rank, and not to mention the mansion mode. The combat itself of the game is pretty simple, and I'd argue maybe a little bit too simple. For the most part, you just have to flash your light and suck up the ghosts. There are some, variations to that, but it would really be nice if there were more elements to the gameplay. There are some ghosts here and there that you would have to use elements on to weaken before you can suck them up. For example, if you run across a fire element ghost, then you would have to spray water on it in order to weaken it before you can suck it up, etc., etc. And that's a good start in my opinion. I would have loved to see more of that, or even maybe new gadgets for catching specific ghosts, or even for puzzle solving / platforming, even though there's not much platforming in this game, so you could probably ignore that part. The game itself isn't too long, so I didn't find myself getting bored of the combat or anything, but I still think that's something that could be improved. One thing that pissed me off to no end was the way the save system was handled. There's no autosave or checkpoints, and the handful of times I didn't come across a Toad or Boo to save, and I progressed super far into the game just to die and be forced to restart where I last saved was so infuriating. I really hope that if they remaster this game on the Nintendo Switch, the biggest thing they do is add an autosave feature. Luigi's Mansion 22 years later is still an amazing game, and I'm glad I picked it up. I loved how unique the concept of this game was, and the mechanics and atmosphere of the game only served to back up the fact that Luigi's Mansion is one of the best games on Nintendo GameCube, period. If you were like how I was, a Nintendo fan who never played this game, I definitely recommend you pick it up and play it. I definitely have got to try out the next games in the series, and I hope they're as good as this one. So, how do you feel about Luigi's Mansion? What was your favorite portrait ghost? And let me know in the comments below. Please consider subscribing to support the channel. Also, if you have time, I usually live stream on weekdays around 8:30 p.m. Pacific time and weekends whenever I wake up and pull myself together. The schedule can sometimes change based on if I'm working on a video like this one, as it does take some time to put together. Also, please consider these videos if you like my work, and thank you for your time. PlotArmorGames, out.